Hey, welcome to the Matters Sports Show. I'm editor Chris Pugh. As always, we got Mike Brown with us. Mike, another busy week of football. Let's kind of get going through everything. How are you?
Real good, thank you, Chris. Hard to believe we're heading to the halfway point of the high school regular season.
Definitely. It just action packed. It keeps us busy, but
Yes,
it's a fun thing to follow, a fun thing to keep busy
absolutely,
about.
Chris. Yep.
All right, so let's figure out how we're going to do this week. How about let's go over the schedule, Mike. Let's pick a couple of interesting games coming up this
Oh,
weekend,
yeah,
and as we talk about them, you can talk about the relationship with the polls as well.
yeah.
Um, Pulling
Well,
up
I
my
tell you what, there's two that stand out right away to me. Youngstown Ursuline goes to Warren Harding Friday night. That should be a great matchup.
yeah,
Ursuline in our poll this week again. They've been in there since the beginning. And the other big game, Struthers and South Range. Again, those are two of the seven teams in our MahoningMatters.com Super 7 poll. That's going to be a great matchup, too. I mean, those are two that really, there's a lot of good ones, but those two are far and away the top ones this weekend in the Youngstown area.
yeah. Like you said, Stroke and Southridge, two of the best teams in the poll.
Yep.
I'll tell you, it's interesting. Ursula and Harding both have a loss with them, but man, the schedule they face, man, if they play any other
Absolutely.
schedule, both of them could be undefeated right now. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, some quality teams there. So yeah,
Yep. Yep.
those games, and obviously check out what game you can check out, but those two really
Yep.
kind of shine above all the other really good games. Couple of ones are kind of interesting. You got Hubbard; they're
Yes.
undefeated. They go
Yep.
over to play Poland. Poland was
Right.
undefeated. They
Yep.
got beat up in a rivalry game. How does Poland bounce back? I'm intrigued by that one too.
Right. I think that'll be there's two really good games in the Northeast, and usually that's the way it is every year. That league is so competitive. There's good games in the Northeast 8 every week during the season, and this week in particular, there's some really good games.
Yeah, I'm looking here too. Yeah, each week we talk about Youngstown Cheney to play a good schedule. They're giving some really good teams tough times.
Yep.
They got another good team coming in, Canfield
Yes.
at Cheney. I'm intrigued about that one too.
Yeah, Canfield gets that win over the arch rival. They win the Battle of 224 over Poland last week, and it sounds like they're starting to find their niche with some younger players. And they've got that great tradition at Canfield, and we know Cheney's always good. Cheney plays
Mhm.
that great defense, so that should be an interesting matchup too, Chris.
Yeah, and Canfield beat a previously undefeated Poland last week. So,
Right?
Canfield's 2-2, but again, some of these teams, as we said, they play really tough schedules. So,
Yep.
don't judge them just based on their record.
Right. Yep.
Um, Gerard, they're going over to Pine Valley.
Yep.
Can Gerard bounce back? I'm
Right.
intrigued by that one.
Yep.
What West Branch goes on the road to play Howland. That'll be interesting.
A thing I
Uh,
noticed about them, and I posted this afternoon. I got a copy of their latest stats today. Do you realize, because they've been such an offensive team, they've been. I think they're averaging 37 points a game this year, but they have I think they have, if it's not the top ranked defense in the Youngstown area, they're giving up 6.7 points a game through 4 games and only 125 yards of total offense. That's really that is a market improvement for them. And I think that's the thing that could really give them some staying power because they've had the offense. It's just when they've gotten deeper in the playoffs, their defense has kind of failed them a little bit. And if
right.
that holds up, and they beat, Canfield and Girard can score points. And those are teams that they've beaten and they're averaging giving up 6.7 points a game. They're really doing a job.
Yeah, it's good to see them with a good defense. I mean,
Yeah.
that really, like you said, I mean, West Branch has always seemed to be a good playoff team.
Yeah.
How they get further in the playoff, and the
Right.
defense could, propel them.
Yeah.
Another game, a couple winning teams that we haven't talked about as much recently. East Palisade at Valley Christian. It's
Yep.
just interesting matchup. Let's see what happens when those teams face each other.
Yep.
I like that one a lot.
Yep.
Let's see what else we got here. Lakeview, the defense was stand out. They had a rough time last week.
Yeah.
Can they bounce back at Niles McKinley? Kind of
Yep.
intrigued by that one.
Yep. I'll tell you
Let's
one
see
I
what else
like,
we got.
Chris. West Reserve, which is undefeated,
Yeah,
goes to Lowellville. I think that's going to be a really good Mahoning Valley Athletic Conference contest on Friday night.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting too.
Yep.
Sebring, if you like 8-man football, they
Yep.
host Toledo Christian on
Yep.
Friday night.
That's right.
Uh, Saturday's good. And again,
Yes.
if you're like, man, I want to catch a couple games on Saturday, you got the opportunity to. Fitch is at Booktle. I know there'll be a little bit of a drive there,
Yep.
but Fitch is our number one team. Intrigued to see what happens there.
Yep. And also, Mayfield goes to Cardinal Mooney. Cardinal Mooney is 0-4, but look at the schedule they played,
Yeah.
Chris. Oh my goodness! And I tell you what, I think if they even win 5 games, I think Mooney still makes the playoff in a really good read. That Division 4, Region 13 is loaded with good teams. And I tell you what, if they make the playoffs with like 5 wins, and they're going to be one of the lower seeded teams in that region, I wouldn't want to play Cardinal Mooney in a first round playoff game because of that schedule they played is really good.
And I'm also, Mayfield's a traditional
Right.
power. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly where they're at
That'll
this
be a
year.
good game. Yep.
Yeah, but they traditionally have done pretty well. So
Yep.
uh should be good. Two young teams. Matthews at Crestline. He used to cover football over in the Richland County area, and Crestline used to struggle. I think they've gotten better. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when those two teams play too. So it should be good. Anybody we did mention the poll? I know we kind of hit on some of the.
Yeah, I tell you what, we have a couple. I think we have one new team on our poll this week. Obviously, Fitch remains the number one, Chris, and we talked about they're going to have Bookdale on Saturday. West Branch is number 2. Struthers is number 3. South Range remains number 4. Ursuline remains number 5. Number 6, Western Reserve, and the new team in our poll this week, Hubbard jumps in at number 7. Like we talked about, they're 4-0. They whipped Niles 41-6 last week, and they're going to travel to Poland like we talked about Friday night. That'll be a great matchup. So congratulations to the Eagles. They hop in the poll at number 7 this week.
Very good. And hey, we had our Player of the Week poll. We mentioned that on the podcast we did on Saturday. Let me just mention these guys real quick. I'll tell you what our results are to the moment. McKing Adar from Harding, he got nominated, had 138 yards on 13 carries. Enzo Coca from Canfield, starting quarterback, 2 touchdowns. Canfield over Poland 17-10. Jack Darney from Western Reserve, he scored 2 touchdowns. Western Reserve, a real close game, beat McDonald 35-34.
Back, man. Yep.
Yeah, Max Hawkins from Crestview, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns. Crestview over Liberty, 44-14. DeMar Rogers, it seems like every week Fitch has a different star, which is a good sign. It shows you got a deep team. You got a lot of guys you can rely on. He had 12 tackles and 2.5 quarterback sacks. Fitch over Riverside, 17-3. I was mentioning this on Saturday morning. Sometimes even as writers, we kind of gravitate toward who's throwing the passes or catching them or running. But man, defense, what impressive performance by Rogers. And again, for coaches and fans out there, if you got a defensive guy, as long as you have stats, let us know. We definitely want to nominate those guys as well. Owen Javakovic from East Palestine. Again, great story down there. Scored 5 touchdowns. East Palestine over Lisbon, 42-27. South Range, another team doing really well. Seems like there's different guys you can spotlight each week. There's a different guy, Gavin Nagy. He caught 2 touchdown passes. South Range over Lakeview, 38-7. And again, Lakeview pitched a couple of shutouts, so that win's a little bit more impressive the more you take a look at that. Louisville, Ricky Warrich threw for 3 touchdowns. Louisville over Campbell, 26-19. And Devin Branham from Struthers, 2021, he scored 3 touchdowns. Remember, Gerard was up on Struthers by 14 a couple times. Struthers comes back and they win. At the moment, again, I'm saying this at the moment because if fans get together to vote, anybody could win this thing. But right now, Jack Darnay's in the lead, followed by Gavin Nagy and Max Hawkins. But again, get out there and vote. It's a fun thing for the kids. I will say this has been a pretty busy time at Mahoning Valley. we did not have stories for the first three winners. We rectified that, posted them. So we got stories on the first three winners too. And again, you can vote week 4, and obviously we'll vote as the weeks continue to go on.
Yep.
So yeah, very exciting stuff. High school, obviously very exciting, but we got a lot of college and pro football we need to talk about here too. YSU, man, I don't know what to say. Tough loss. They played Duquesne, who was a playoff team last year, but we kind of signified to say, man, if you really want to be in the thick of the playoff things, these are games you need to win. Tough loss from Youngstown State. Duquesne had a late comeback. They defeated Youngstown State last Saturday, 20-25. Tough loss, and it doesn't get any easier for Youngstown State. They go on the road to Acrisure Stadium to face the Pitt Panthers. Pitt has lost early in the year, but Pitt's had some good wins. Most notably, last weekend, man, they beat West Virginia. So Pitt's coming off an emotional rivalry win. Obviously, Youngstown State would love to go in and win that game. Sometimes these money games, it's hard to kind of equate success just with a win or loss.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Mike. This has got to be for the sake of the year and the program. I would imagine Youngstown State just really feels the need to come in and put up a good performance on Saturday.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think to see how many positives they can take from playing up in the schedule, and hopefully gain some confidence for some of those games down the road. They've kind of put themselves against a little bit of the wall early on here. So not talking about this week in particular, but some of those conference games, those Missouri Valley Football Conference games later on, they're going to have to play well now because they've already got 2 losses on the season.
Yeah, and I want to look at this. It was interesting. Youngstown State, one of their biggest wins came. They defeated Youngstown State. Youngstown State upset Pitt back in 2012.
Yes, that's right.
First game of Paul Chris when he was a coach at Pitt.
Yes,
31-17. Looking at the other results here, I think Pitt is up on the series 4-1. But man, you never know.
That's why they play the game.
Yeah, 2015, Pitt and Youngstown State had a competitive game. Pitt won 45-37. A couple of blowouts there from Pitt over Youngstown State, but you never know. And again, it might be silly just to say, okay, they're definitely going to win the game, but how can Youngstown State build on a performance?
Right.
Even if it's a loss on Saturday, can they build up stuff where maybe they can go win?
Exactly.
Get back in the thick of it.
I couldn't agree more, Chris.
Yeah. I always wonder. I'd love to talk to coaches about that. But how do you go into a game like that? You know what I mean? And obviously, you want to win. You want to put a game plan together. But how do you preach that? Hey, let's come up with some good things to build on.
Right.
It always intrigues me.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And let's talk Ohio State. Ohio State off last week. It's a long season. For a team like Ohio State that's expected to make the playoffs, you could have 3 extra games if you're going to the national title game. So I get it. You need those off weeks, but kind of weird to have a week 3. I guess the off week has to come for different teams, but they played a really good game against Western Michigan. They got a team in Marshall coming up. They're widely expected to, easily defeat Marshall. You kind of, man, I guess if I had to pick when that off week would come, it'd be nice to see it come like after Marshall before the Big Ten starts. But what do you think Ohio State should want to do?
I'll tell you what, I think they need to be fine tuning because you do have some new players in there. One of the running backs is new. 2 of the receivers are new. They get playing time, and they need to continue to work on things because the Big Ten season is just around the corner. And boy, when I look at their schedule, they have to go to Penn State, and they'll have Michigan at home, but Michigan's that's still the rivalry. They've got some other tough games on the schedule, so I think they want to fine tune this thing, and they did look impressive in that win over Western Michigan. So we'll see what goes. And they do have, Chris, they do have a second bye week later
Right.
on in the season. It's a kind of a strange season for them where they have two
Right.
bye weeks. So I think they looked at this past week as not even a bye week. They actually said, I believe Ryan Day said that was they wanted to work on things through the bye week. They weren't just going to give the players a lot of time off. They worked on things.
Okay.
And I think that'll keep them sharp for, the game against Marshall coming up this Saturday.
Well, and I think you want to, like, Michigan State and Iowa are probably going to be tune-up games for Ohio State before they go over to Oregon.
Right.
But you wonder, too, like, Akron was a complete performance. I think you could argue that Western Michigan was a complete performance.
Yeah.
So how do you have that complete performance again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to kind of feel like you did after Western Michigan, other than, the game against Akron.
Yeah.
And then, Michigan State, like you said, tuning up. I mean, Ohio State comes in the Michigan State game a better team. But, a Big Ten team is going to come in more well-equipped than a MAC team. So, are you ready for that? And again, even if they're not ready, they're well expected to still pull out a win over Michigan State. But again, you've got to get on a roll. You got to get ready when teams like Oregon come up. So,
right, yeah.
Should be
Look
good.
at their schedule. Oh my goodness, man! When you got to go out to Oregon, you've got Michigan at home. You got to go to Penn State. I mean, there's some pretty tough teams on their schedule.
Yeah, definitely. NFL, I'll tell you, there's some games that I guess, and we'll talk about in a second, the Browns and Steelers games were both kind of ugly, which kind of early in the year is to be expected. So maybe not an utter shock at how the games went. I'll tell you, I wanted to real quickly touch on a couple small things around the NFL. The New Orleans Saints have always been an okay team, but nothing that you expect to see a playoff team. Man, they won both games by over 40 points.
Yes.
Now, I know Carolina is one of the worst teams in the league. The team they won in week 1, but they're beating Dallas. And I think when you go through the NFL, there's some records that, it's only been 2 games. You kind of scratch your head a little bit. Like, I think of Seattle. They're 2-0. That was kind of unexpected. What else we have that jumped out to me? The Saints being 2-0.
Yeah.
I think, the Ravens and Bengals. Now, again, the Raiders loss was kind of strange yesterday, but both the Ravens and Bengals lost to the Chiefs. So, they were playing really good teams to start out with.
Yep.
So I say this to say, I think we're still early in the season.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Ravens and Bengals are 0-2 aren't going to last. The teams are going to win their fair share of games before the year goes on. But looking at the Browns, really tough performance in week 1. Week 2, if you really look at it, I wouldn't look at week 2 and say, wow, they're back to being a Super Bowl team. They're not. But I kind of wonder, Mike, next week you play the Giants, who they're shaky at best. If you get out of this at 2-1, don't print your playoff tickets yet. But what could this mean to the Browns as the season goes on?
That's a good question, Chris, because I think the Browns won in spite of themselves late yesterday. They tried everything to give that game away, a game that was theirs. And to tell you the truth, because Stefanski didn't play a whole lot of the starters in the preseason, you can tell they're still working out a lot of kinks, and they were forced to win that game yesterday. They're lucky they're not 0-2. And they got the Giants. That's a winnable game at home. But you know what? When you look at the NFL and you think, you'll get through a schedule and say, well, that's a winnable game. Every game, almost every week, comes down to like the last 2 minutes. I don't care if you're playing a bad team, a good team. That's just the way the NFL is, outside of maybe a couple teams every week.
But you look at high school football, sometimes, there's teams that are better than other teams. And that's where you see a blowout happen. Or in college, you may see a mismatch in a schedule where one team's definitely better than the others. It's still the NFL. Now, I know there's some teams that are weak, like Carolina looks rough. But still, every team is filled with professional football players.
Yep.
Yeah, Carolina's got blown out a lot, but I wouldn't expect to see Carolina get blown out every game. I mean, they have the ability to keep some of these games a little bit more competitive, even though they might lose some of their games. So I think that's what you see. I mean, and again, we're here to talk about the Browns and Steelers, but another example I could come up with that was the Bengals. I mean, good night. They lost a rough game against the Patriots. Yeah. Joe Burrow did not look healthy. And you're like, okay, they're going to play the Chiefs. Oh, Chiefs by 3 touchdowns. They came really close to beating
That's
the
right.
Chiefs.
Yep.
And you could argue about that last second pass interference call, which could win either way. I mean, hey, if that went the other way, Bengals are 1-1 right now. So
Right. Yeah.
it's so hard to
It
figure
is.
it
Yep.
out. And yeah, I mean, obviously, being 1-1 can definitely help. I think stuff is still going to kind of figure its way out. And I'm with you. I think the only solace the Browns could take is, look, they won the game. It's
Right.
one win. I mean, you can't say, oh, look at the performance. They're going to throw together 10 wins. But they're working out the kinks. Could they work out the kinks even more against the Giants? We're not going to know until the game happens.
Right.
I thought Deshaun, it was funny. The first series, he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
He kind of had some shaky stuff as the game goes on.
Yeah.
The other thing, Myles Garrett hurt. He says he wants to play through it. Yeah, he's good enough where I think he can still play well, but if he plays hurt, does that hurt him as the year goes on? Man, just a lot of unknown questions. And I think the only solace the Browns have is there's a lot of teams out there that are fighting for stuff right now.
Right.
I think it's going to be a long season. I don't think the Super Bowl is going to be won or lost in week 2. I think you're going to see some teams really emerge as the season goes on. Maybe it's a team that's struggling at the beginning, like the Bengals, Ravens, or maybe it's a team like the Chiefs that get really hot. I think that's what's saying. So I share your concern with the Browns. It was nothing to brag about or take home about, but it's
way too many penalties, and that's 2 games in a row. That tells me they need to work on discipline in that football team. That's an undisciplined football team. That's a team that has some talent, but if you don't have discipline, you'll lose those close games we're talking about a lot of time. Now, luckily, they were able to win in spite of that yesterday. But how about that one drive when they had 3 consecutive penalties? Late in the game, you can't do stuff like that. Usually you'll pay a price for that. They were lucky to win yesterday in spite of that.
Yeah, definitely. For the Steelers, it's interesting. I've said this before. You've got a lot of different elements on your offense, and I think the different elements are better than the elements they had last year.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put all those together at one time, again, we're all human beings. These guys need to learn how to play together, figure things out. I knew the beginning of the year would be kind of rough for the offense. It's a little bit rougher than I thought it might be. They've got the elements there, but man, Mike, they got to do a little bit more on their offense. They ended up winning the game 13-6 over Denver, but Denver has a rookie quarterback that was struggling, to be kind, and Denver's missing some other elements on their team. So good for Pittsburgh. I thought the defense played great.
Yep.
Sunday, I think before we started recording, I think they have a Super Bowl defense. Their offense is really trying to figure stuff out. And the good news is with the defense playing the way it is, the offense doesn't need to be like the Chiefs. I said this to a bunch of people before the year started. If they can average like 22, 23 points, they're great. But right now they scored 18, they scored 13 points. They got to work it out.
Well, the nice thing about that, Chris, is they're 2-0 while they're working that out, and they're leading the division while they're working that out. So it's not like they started the season 0-2 and they're trying to find their offense. They got the great defense. They're in first place in the AFC North, and that offense will find itself, and that defense is there. You know that. That's one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, find himself is, hey, score never touchdown a game. I mean, it's not like, we need trade for every major playmaker ever. No, how do you score that touchdown? And I think Justin Fields, is starting to get a niche. I like his attitude and the way he talks about it. I've seen some other recent Steelers quarterbacks in the past and just be like, it was fine. It was fine. After the game, he pretty much said, he pointed out some stuff where they failed. They came short with. Yep. They only had 1 first down in the second half. I mean, it was pretty rough at times. But again, if you can get those people playing, I think the hard thing for the Steelers, and again, Ayuk didn't happen. I get it. You can't always get guys like that, but they need somebody. They really didn't have their second through, fifth guys and receivers performing in a place where they weren't even getting targets. I mean, it wasn't like they weren't catching passes. Right. They weren't getting targets either. And I know the Steelers are a running team, but you've got to throw sometimes. And when you play teams that can score like the Bengals and the Chiefs and other teams like that, Yeah, the defense I think is going to give these other teams trouble, but it's the NFL in 2024. You're not going to shut everybody out.
That's right.
So
Yep, that's right, Chris. Absolutely.
yeah,
And the other thing,
so
getting back to the Brownsville, I saw where
yeah,
like they've lost David Bell for the season through an
yeah.
injury. So they're going to be down another receiver there, and so I don't know if they'll look at the waiver wire or they'll look to make a deal or something, or bring somebody up from the practice squad. So because I think initially he was on the practice squad, and then they brought him up. So I'll be anxious to see what they do with that spot, that opening.
Yeah, I think both the Browns and Steelers could be in the need of receivers.
Yeah,
When you look at the trade deadline, again, we're 2 games in the season,
yeah,
but a lot of times too, you got to look at teams that are 0-2 or
yeah.
teams that may have some veterans.
That's
I
right.
saw today, kind of interesting. His best years are behind him, but maybe a cheaper option than like a Ayuk or a Devontae Adams or something. Adam Thielen, Carolina had all kinds of trouble passing the ball. He seemed very frustrated at times.
Yeah,
He could be a cheaper option. That again may not carry the team on your back,
yeah,
but could be that second or third guy that a contending
right,
team could use. So
right. Yep.
you never know.
That's going to be interesting.
I, a note from there, and this guy was a former Bengal. Bryce Young got benched today for the Panthers.
Yeah.
A new front office that drafted him. Andy Dalton starting this week for the
Yeah.
Panthers.
How about that? Yep.
Yeah, Panthers could be in line for a number 1 quarterback next year. I'll put that way. And the other interesting thing, again, not Browns or Steelers related, but definitely Ohio State related. I got to check out the first little bit of the Rams and Chiefs yesterday on TV. Marvin Harrison had an insane first quarter. He had 2 long touchdown passes. I think he ended up with like 130 yards in the first quarter alone.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Mike, you look at a guy like Marvin Harrison, we saw it from his years he spent at Ohio State. I'm seeing a little bit of the same thing with Jeremiah Smith for Ohio State now. These guys look like men among boys. I mean, even in the NFL game, Harrison had a slow first week, but man, he toasted a couple Rams defenders. And again, not our local teams, but it's good to see a guy like that do well in the pros.
Absolutely. And his dad was an All-Pro multiple times, so you can tell he's got unbelievable potential.
Yeah, and the thing that really sticks out about like a Harrison and Jeremiah Smith, the speed. Definitely having speed's good,
Right.
but these guys are so tall too. I mean,
Yep.
it's the height and speed you put together. It's really hard to stop.
Think about the receivers Ohio State has sent to the NFL just in the last 5 years. Oh my goodness, it's incredible.
Yeah, and Ibikwe was the highly touted receiver who was going to be the number 1 guy, and he still was performing for Ohio State. But man, Jeremiah Smith is kind of like
Oh yeah,
he's almost become the forgotten guy.
Yep.
Oh, one other guy I wanted to shout out, a guy I really liked in college. I was glad the Steelers picked him. Darnell Washington caught his first touchdown pass.
Mhm.
Mike, you probably don't remember the guy, but the Steelers had a tight end that was like 6'3", 280 pounds that ran really fast, and Eric Green that I used to love in the 90s. Eric had some off the field problems, so he had 2 or 3 good years, and his career curtailed. Washington reminds me of Eric Green. Not as fast as Eric Green.
Mhm.
This guy is 6'2", 305, and it's
Wow.
a tight end.
Oh man.
And he can catch. So
Yeah.
his touchdown pass, they pretty much threw him a lob,
Yeah.
and he caught it. He's also a power. I mean, they have him in a lot as an extra blocker.
Yeah.
And you talk about having that 6 offensive
Oh yeah, lineman.
boy,
Yeah.
that goes out too. So, I mean, he's definitely a backup. Some injury history there, so I wouldn't necessarily count him be an All-Pro, but he kind of stood out yesterday for Steelers. So I was glad to see what happened there. So, all right, well, fantastic. Well, Mike, as always, appreciate your time. Let's hang on the line for a second afterwards. And for Mike, this is Chris. Thanks for checking out Mahoning Valley Sports Show. Have a great day, everybody.